Well, we're picking up where we left off in the book of Revelation. We just went through the final bowl judgments. Now we're looking at chapter 17, Babylon. Chapter 17 is about religious Babylon. Chapter 18 will be about economic Babylon. As I mentioned before, I understand Babylon to be a literal city for several reasons. I would add that this has been prophesied as well in Jeremiah 50 and 51. There's many parallels between those two chapters and what happens to the city of Babylon in Revelation chapter 17 and 18. In fact, I've counted up 16 different parallels between those chapters in Jeremiah and Revelation. Zechariah 5 as well predicts very similar judgments that we see here in the book of Revelation. In addition, as I told you last time, place names in the book of Revelation are always literal unless specifically identified as figurative. Babylon the Great is how Nebuchadnezzar referred to the literal city. And just because we are using it as a literal city doesn't mean it also can't be symbolic or stand as something else. So for a number of reasons then, I think when we talk about Babylon, we are talking about a literal city. And in this case, it's standing for a very corrupt world religious system. Three sections here. The first part, up to verse 7, is the vision itself. John sees this vision. The explanation of the vision then starts in verse 8 and continues to verse 14. And then beginning in verse 15, we have this judgment that comes on them. So we'll be looking at some notes on another screen here. I hope that's not too distracting for you, but there's lots of details in here, lots of information. One of the things to be alert to as you go through this is the number of different characters that are involved here. We see a woman, we see the beast, which was introduced in Revelation chapter 13. We see these 10 horns and 7 heads. It's kind of disorienting, I think, with all these visionary things that John sees in heaven. But I think what we're looking at here is really an anti-God, world-dominating religious system that we're being looked at here. Notice how she's referred to, or Babylon is referred to as a great prostitute, and how often sexual immorality is mentioned in this. It seems to be a characteristic of the city. Again, I'm taking this literal. In the prophets, sexual immorality is sometimes used as a metaphor for idolatry. Could certainly include that here, but it seems to me like to take this literally, that this is a place that's characterized by sexual immorality is a way to take it. Also, it pictures an alliance between this Antichrist, this beast, these leaders. These are the 7 heads and 10 horns, and the woman, this anti-God system. We see that in verses 3 and 4, that they are all aligned with one another and cooperating and working together. We see this also, this kind of universal sort of rebellion. The woman is seated on many waters. We've looked at this before, and waters are often picturing the Gentile nations. We could say unbelieving nations at this point. And in verse 15, we see this expanded upon. The angel said to me, the waters that you saw where the prostitute is seated are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages. So it seems like she's in alliance with this worldwide rebellion against God. And there's going to be, in verse 4, this final judgment, the golden cup full of abominations and of the impurities of her sexual immorality. That's what's in her hand. She's drunk deeply of sin, and she's going to be paying for it. And that's the kind of the summary of these first 7 verses that we're looking at here. And then We see the kind of the vision here as this woman and the beast and the 7 heads and the 10 horns that carry her all together, and the explanation of who this is and what she is doing. Verses 8 through 14 then talk about is an explanation, right? Verse 8, the beast that you saw was and is not and is about to rise from the bottomless pit and go to destruction. So the source is the place where the fallen angels are kept until they are cast into hell. And the destiny is their destruction. And the dwellers on the earth, so we've seen this, I think it's mentioned 11 times in the book of Revelation, these earth dwellers, whose names have not been found written in the book of life from the foundation of the world, will marvel to see the beast, because it was and is not and is to come. So this beast is going to marvel the unsaved and the unsavable at this point, that they are going to be shocked about what they're going to see. In verses 9 and 10, it talks about basically history coming to its culmination here. This calls for a mind with wisdom. 7 heads are 7 mountains on which the woman is seated. There are also 7 kings, 5 of whom have fallen. One is, the other has not yet come. And when he does come, he will remain only for a little while. So again, some of these kings have come, some have come and gone, some are here, and some are still coming. So this final world kingdom is going to be the culmination of history. It's only going to last for a little while. Verses 11 to 12 then talk about this alliance of these kings under the control of the Antichrist. They'll be of one mind. They're going to hand their power and authority over to the beast. And of course, this is being predicted because this is all under God's control, under God's authority. These are not accidental. They are going to happen. Verses 13 and 14 then, they will make war on the Lamb, and the Lamb will conquer them. For he is the Lord of lords and Kings of kings, and those who are with him are called chosen and faithful. That'll be us. So that the destiny of this conglomeration of kings under the control of Babylon, who's being manipulated by and supported by the Antichrist, they're all going to be gathered together. They're all going to be thrown into war against the returning Lord Jesus, and they are going to be defeated. That is what's coming, and that's what we'll see at the end here. Verses 15 through 18, interesting developments here. The angel said to me, the waters that you saw where the prostitute is seated are peoples and multitudes and nations and languages, and the 10 horns that you saw, they and the beast will hate the prostitute. They will make her desolate and naked and devour her flesh and burn her up with fire. So this alliance that the Antichrist pulls together is going to ultimately turn on this religious system that's centered in Babylon. And they will be then destroyed by the returning Jesus. God has put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose by being of one mind and handing over their royal power to the beast until the words of God are fulfilled. And that words of God are in verse 14. They'll make war until Jesus brings it to an end. And then finally, all of this notice that is in accordance with God's will, that God has put it into their hearts to carry out his purpose. And so this is the culmination. This is the religious background of the war that's going to happen when Jesus returns. It's anticipating his return in chapter 19, and we're closing in on that closely here. So, brothers and sisters, as we survey what's happening in the world today, we can be assured that as crazy, as chaotic, as out of control that it seems, that the Lord is in charge, that he is bringing everything together. I saw something about a great convergence of economic and religious activities, political activities seem to be taking place. It's leading it to the plan that the Lord has, the eternal plan that he's always had, so there's no reason for us to fear. But be confident in the Lord and continue to serve him until he comes to take us home with him. So God bless you, brothers and sisters, and we'll finish up the week tomorrow when we look at economic Babylon. God bless you.